graphic nature of this program, listener discretion is advised.
Deviants, welcome to show. I am the Clitoris, and I am here with
the Gooch
and the Diva Slack,
and we are the Social Deviants, who are here today to talk about one, if not the greatest anime in human history.
Well, movie.
Anime movie.
Movie, yeah.
Oh, true. You had to quickly correct me there, Gooch. I appreciate
you
that.
You call it movie, I call it mindfuck.
And
it's not that bad.
This is in honor of, we're recording on February 8th, and I believe this episode should be posting on February 13th. And in the meantime, I believe that Friday you should be getting ready for the release of Alita Battle Angel, which is in the anime Battle Angel Alita, or the manga, excuse me, and the anime, I suppose. Looks like an awesome movie, but I wanted to take it back to the old school, take it back to the origins, and I wanted to take it back to I think this is probably the first anime movie that I ever saw. I think probably before that was like probably Voltron, maybe some Robotech, and so forth. But was this the first anime movie you guys had ever seen?
No.
For me, the movie, yes.
What did you have seen before this?
I saw
Fist of North Star?
Fist of North Star, yeah. Because Fist of North Star, the movie came out in, I would say, 86, 87. So I saw that one first. But I mean, obviously, it was released here later. But that's the one that I just happened to rent first off of the renting place. So...
Yeah, and I've seen, and you mentioned Robotech and Voltron. I've seen those, but those are TV shows, you know.
Yeah,
those aren't actual movies.
I didn't see. Do you remember Macross? Do you remember Love until I was in high school? But that's the Macross movie. But the Macross movie did come out earlier than Akira.
Akira.
So the movie actually begins. The first scene, if anyone's watched it, which they should have, begins on July 16th, 1988, which is actually the date that the movie was released. And you see like a white singularity, like a explosion. And obviously this is hearkening back to and serves as an allegory for the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. So I think, maybe this is something that's distinctly culturally Japanese, this idea of the bomb exploding. I think you see it obviously in stuff like Terminator 2 as well. But it seems to really hit this one on the button.
Yeah, I was watching this movie with Kat, and the second that happened, I turned to her and said, "Happy 10th birthday." World War III started. Because her birthday is July 16th.
Goodness. And so I'm assuming what happened was that bomb went off, or that explosion went off. It wasn't a bomb, we find out. The explosion went off and everything good. And that triggered some international dispute that resulted in a World War III. Is that what I'm understanding correctly?
Well,
Gooch?
what I understand is that whatever they were doing to Akira caused that like seismic or psionic implosion, which I'm assuming people took as a nuclear bomb, but I don't think a nuclear bomb exploded. It was Akira doing his intergalactic black hole mind thing that sucked up all of Tokyo. But obviously people didn't know what it was, except for the people messing with Akira, and they're like, well, it was someone dropped a nuke there. But I mean, if you drop a nuke, I mean, people are living in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, but I mean, it's messed up there. It's really, they wouldn't put brand new Tokyo over this radioactive.
Yeah, because it would be there'd be tons of radiation, right?
Exactly. So
it'd be like Chernobyl.
Exactly right. So they wouldn't put brand new Tokyo over this radioactive mess. So what happened was they blamed what happened to Akira the first time, whatever he did, make that big white sphere thing appear, and they just blamed it on the nuke. And obviously, I'm sure Japan blamed it on someone and started World War III that way.
And so then the beginning of the movie jumps forward 31 years to 2019, which is now. And obviously, this movie is set in a completely different a completely different milieu. Sorry guys for that word, but that's the word. In Neo Tokyo. I always find it interesting that they call these places like Neo Tokyo or Neo this, but we've never actually done that on Earth here.
Not yet. We haven't had the future yet.
It just makes it sound
2019.
futuristic. Yeah, it's honestly, it's a very Japanese thing to do. To be honest with you, they call Neo stuff every single time. It's like I know you guys. It's like for like the future, the Sailor Moon future, it's called Neo whatever, Neo Earth, or I don't know what the hell it's called. There was a few other ones, and there was like in a Bubblegum Crisis, it's like Neo San Francisco and all that sort of stuff. So it's a very tropic thing in Japanese like manga and anime.
Do you think that we would actually do that if we sort of establish cities on other planets, though?
We probably would, but honestly, I mean, Neo just means kind of new. It's just new in a different thing. So right,
Yeah, but I think if we're getting to the point where we're traveling to other planets and stuff, you figure a lot of the technology behind that's going to be inspired by people that were watching these kinds of animes.
Maybe.
So you would think like, I don't know, Neo Moon Crater.
Honestly, I think humans are dumb. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be like how they do it in Futurama. It's called New York. just
Neo
double up
New
the
York?
No, it's like seriously, Futurama is called New York.
Oh, yeah.
So
Newest York.
so I was like, well, there you go.
This movie was made on a $9 million budget. It was the most expensive anime of its time.
Yeah.
But actually, it garnered $80 million in home video sales, which is astounding. It's especially for an animated film. I don't think, and not only that, you're talking about a foreign animated film,
right?
That its native language is not English. I mean, obviously they've done a bunch of dubs and so forth, but I just find that amazing, especially if you're going to consider what $80 million is in 1988 as compared to what it would be now.
Right. You'd have to.
Now, was that 80 million like in 88, or was that like from 88 till now?
From 88 till now, probably.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's still a ton of money. So one of the things that stood out for me right away is the music. And I love that. I love that Kaneda, his theme song. That's one of the things that when I first saw the movie stood out to me. I was like, damn, what's that music? I like that music. I think it's actually like some traditional Japanese percussive musical group, I think, that created that sort of ethnic percussive sound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was reading also that I guess the entire score was written before the movie was made. So it's not like they wrote the music for the movie. They just wrote music, and there's that song that goes Kaneda Tetsuo. But yeah, I mean, it was all done before the movie.
Okay,
yeah. But I mean, some of the tunes that they have in there, like it just syncs up perfectly with what's going on in the movie. It's just this weird, and I haven't heard anything like it since. You get like Tangerine Dream in Legend, like it's some weird like 80s synth pop for a high fantasy movie, but like this, it's like just kind of like the weird, tingy tones that are coming out of it just fit perfectly with all like the crazy mind stuff that's going on in this film.
And it's interesting because they use a lot of voice in the soundtrack actually too, in the score. It's a lot of voice work. It's a lot of breathing, loud breathing. And obviously I'm assuming they're speaking Japanese when they're singing and saying these words, but it's not even singing. It's just people talking.
Yeah.
And I mean, not talking, but like saying something in like unison. And it really makes it ominous and odd. And like you said, Devo, kind of disturbing.
And like in that final battle, like there's like when it kind of slows down, there's like nothing blowing up. You can hear the music, and you hear guys going like, I was like, what the? And I had headphones on at the time because everybody in the house was sleeping when I was watching this. I was like, what the hell is happening right now?
And the movie uses I was actually wanted to point this out too. The movie, despite the great music that it has, it uses silence to great effects actually in quite a few scenes. I mean, unrealistically in some cases, but it actually is not afraid to just be silent in some moments.
Well, like when Tetsuo goes up to destroy the satellite, like there's no sound in space, so it's like it's all perfectly quiet up there.
Yeah.
So that was a perfect use.
I feel like this movie is sort of the Citizen Kane of anime in the sense that like a lot of animes that were made before this have like and and then there's like this movie comes out and it like almost changes the trajectory of what people think not only you can put in like anime style stories, but also like the art, you know?
What I think is that up until this point, even though, you know, Japanese animation had been brought to the United States and all over the world, to be honest with you, but this one brought it to the forefront, actually showing that it actually can be art. I think that's what really brought to it. I mean, I think there's good anime, even movies prior to this one, but the problem is this one, they did it just the art style, especially for 1988. Even today, it's still good. But the art style, the storytelling, I mean, it's not, I mean, there's not, I mean, the acting in it, even in Japanese, isn't very good. I mean, what they're saying, but what's happening.
The acting is horrible in this movie.
What's happening and the feeling of it, you know, the feeling of loneliness, of, you know, being ostracized from society and all this other stuff. And the way they portrayed it is really, really good. And I think that's what they really did to bring, you know, this
adult themed
animation to where it's like, okay, yeah, you can have a serious animation and talk about serious things and it be profitable.
Yeah, and it's not just Saturday morning cartoons for little kids, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So it was groundbreaking for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I felt like at some point there was a point where I felt like this is like a Japanese version of a natural disaster film in a lot of ways. Didn't you get that feeling?
Well, I mean, I kind of did, but with, like you said, with the nuclear blast, because at first you think it's a nuclear blast, so it's like, oh, it's another, you know, Japanese radiation type movie. Because honestly, a lot of them is like that. I mean,
Godzilla and so forth.
Godzilla and a ton of other ones are, you know, surrounded around by that again, that trope that, you know,
World War II bombs.
We lived through radiation, and got mutated and all this stuff, and yeah, I mean, where was I going with this? And I forgot. But
I was saying it was like a disaster film.
Oh yeah, but that kind of disaster film. And then so you're like going like, oh, it's gonna be one of these, and then they go into the motorcycle gang. It's like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah,
it's like super different. So that's what I liked.
Okay, so let's talk about the casting. Obviously this is going to be a little bit shorter because I don't know who these Japanese actors are. And there's been so many versions of the dub of this movie in English that it's like, I don't know. And none of them have like big name actors in them. So we're talking about the characters. So the first one is that, you know, the Ryu character and the Colonel, and there's even like another guy that's like among these like revolutionaries. Like there's like 3 dudes in the movie that almost look identical. They have like the same mustache and the same facial features, but they have even the same height. They just have different hair and different voices. That was the only way I could tell them apart.
Yeah.
I thought that was weird.
That main dude with Kai, right?
I think
what's her name?
I think it's Ryu.
No, okay, yeah, it's Ryu, because the chick was Kai, and then
there's Ryu, and then there's another dude. I couldn't catch his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those 2 dudes looked exactly the same. And then there's one scene when you first see Kai, she's running with the one dude with the mustache, and then when they leave the detention center, she sees the other guy with the mustache. I'm like, oh, that's her boy from before. He's just like in a disguise.
But it wasn't.
No, it was a completely different dude.
That made it a little.
Wait. No, she sees Ryu.
I think she sees the other guy.
No. So okay, so you don't.
Because she meets up with Ryu again in later, and he's wearing his suit, and then that dude shows up because he's wearing some weird hat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's right in the background.
Yeah, it was a different dude. It just looked exactly like him.
I wonder who. I mean, when he's talking to the senator guy, is that Ryu or is that the other guy?
Ryu, I think.
That's Ryu,
because I think later on that senator guy was like, "You backstabbed me, Ryu. You betrayed me."
So, okay.
And then he blasts him, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. In the gut.
Yeah. You know the leader of the clown biker gang.
The big old black dude?
Yeah, was he a black guy or was he just a dark-skinned jungle Asian dude?
Well, I always thought he was black dude.
There's some dark-skinned Japanese dudes.
But I think he's just too big to be like an Asian guy. Like he was a real big bulky guy.
Yeah.
So he might have been a black dude that lived in Japan.
But that was the only non-Asian person in the whole movie then. right?
Well,
there's no white people, I don't think.
No, I doubt it. I mean, the guy's names. Look at these names: Kaneda, Tetsuo, Kei, Ryu, Nezu, Lady Miyako, Inspector. So,
the inspector. Well, you always have an inspector full.
Exactly. So
in these things full.
So I don't even like the. Yeah, see this. There's even the head of the leader of the clowns. It was
what was his name?
I think. Let me see. Did he have any speaking voices?
Probably just clown leader.
Probably clown leader. I doubt
because you only see him that one time, and then after that he's done.
Well, he gets killed. Yeah,
he's Gonzo after that.
You remember the scene where the colonel goes and he sits with the council, and there's all these dudes around, right? And I was like, there was one guy that spoke. I swear to God, this dude literally looked like an Asian skeleton version of Larry King. Did he not? Did you see that guy?
It doesn't ring a bell.
His hair was identical too. If you ever watch it again, just look out for him.
Which is funny because like there's like 3 different versions of Ryu, but like all the council members look different. You notice that?
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait a second.
They all look different. Yeah.
They all looked, it's distinctly different.
Yeah.
Okay, last one before we get onto the script. How old did you think those kids were?
They were in high school for sure. I'm assuming they were at least like 15, 16.
I mean, okay, so let me rephrase that. The psionic kids.
No, those weren't kids. Dude. They were like in their 40s.
They're like 6, 7.
No, they were like in their 40s because
they were around when Akira was.
Yeah, exactly.
For
so
the first
I would
one,
say
right?
they were what?
Oh, yeah.
6 to 7, maybe 10, 11.
Because they were like 6 or 7 when the experiment started.
Yeah,
but they stayed in that childlike form.
Exactly. So I mean, Akira looked like he was 9 or 10. You know. So I'm assuming they were around that age. You add 30 years, late 30s, early 40s. That's how old those kids were.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
There you go. And they like so. And this probably we can cover this in the script part that's coming up next. But you know,
let's go into it. Get off it.
I know that there were the secret experiments on the kids. I know that they were trying to unlock the potential of the brain, but did they ever express why they were doing it and why they really went with kids and like, you know, why the kids got stuck in those kid-like state? Like, because at the beginning of the movie, you just have a bunch of like little kids that are with blue skin and white hair. They have like super crazy mental powers.
Well, I mean, with like anything that has to do with, you know, secret government experiments. I mean, imagine a parent, you know, saying that, oh, my kid is kind of a freak, you know, this is 89. So, you know, think of it like this, or 88. What do they take them? Take them to some psychiatric ward and the government hears them and takes them, you know, takes these troubled kids that have ESP, you know, and.
I kind of thought that there's a scene where the girl old kid takes over the Kanedaa's chick when they're in the cell, and she starts like goes on this like, you know, monologue about like basically just spoon feeding us like kind of what it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she mentions that the power that Akira has, we have in all of us, and then. So there's that nugget, and then there's another little nugget where they're talking about how Tetsuo has his powers, but if he starts using them too fast, he could lose control, right? And so I think the idea being that like the powers start to manifest in little kids, and if you can get them when they first start to manifest, then you can sort of develop a person that can harness them. I think that one of the things that was criticized, that the Colonel was criticizing, is like 30 years prior, the people that were working with these kids, they were irresponsible, and that they didn't respect the power, and it blew up in their faces, literally. And I think that's kind of what happened.
With Tetsuo, they do a pretty good job of explaining that, you know, when he was growing up, Canada was kind of like, not Canada, Kaneda. He was kind of like Canada, the boss, and he was like always looking out for Tetsuo, and Tetsuo always felt like he was being like pushed around and being told what to do, and now he's got this power, and he was abusing it, and I think they did a really good job of explaining that, and I think that's one reason why they went with the younger kids too, because they don't have those emotions. So, as the power is developing, they're not being consumed by trying to get revenge and stuff like that, like Tetsuo was. And then, unfortunately, Tetsuo lost control of the power, and the power decided to manifest itself in this giant human blob, which I have no idea why it chose to do that.
I do have some information for you on that a little bit later, because that is, if you check out some of the stuff on the anime, they actually explain the science behind it a little bit, but they don't do that in the movie, of course. One of the last things I wanted to talk about, actually, as far as characters, was, I don't know if you guys felt this way, but the way that they drew the buildings and the city, it to me, when I was seeing it for the first time, it seemed like almost like futuristically, like majestic, like the city itself was one of the most important characters in the film. But they also made it seem like, as much as it was futuristic, it was also like fraying at the seams. It was grimy. It was overpopulated. It was like in a state of disrepair. Like even in the beginning, when Gooch said that he loved the fact that they went straight into that the bike chase, was like they were showing like construction and like some broken down vehicle graveyards and stuff like that. I just loved it. It's truly cyberpunk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the colonel himself said that, like, he said the rebuilding era is over, and now what's left is, the scum of society trying to, get something back other than just rebuilding, type of things. Like he has this taste for humanity.
I think in that scene, the colonel is walking down the street, and he's like, you can see in the background there's this couple making out, and the dude's just got his hand right up under his shirt, just going to town in public.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe even like a Sodom and Gomorrah type allegory as well, veiled. So now, I also loved it, Gooch, when you mentioned the biker gang thing when it first comes in. It's obviously like an iconic scene, the way that they sort of bring in the kid, and they show that, like, they're showing the biker gang, then they're showing the kid, and then they sort of bring these two groups together, and then you finally see how they're related, and they give you a little nugget of that older looking kid. So now you know that there's more than them. Mm-hmm. and then they take them away. It really honestly set up very much like an anime series. Like that would have been the end of the first episode of a series, but it's a movie. Did you get that feeling, Gooch?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think I don't know. I don't think I've ever read the manga, to be honest with you. So
it's
I don't know.
6 parts, or 6 main parts, volumes.
Volumes. Okay, so yeah,
6 volumes. So I'm assuming they were releasing it weekly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were releasing in those manga magazines,
Shonen Jump. Yeah,
type thing. Yeah, it was a Shonen Jump, but it was
monthly. I guess it's monthly. I'm sorry.
It's a monthly one. Yeah, it's kind of like how Nintendo Power was, and you'd have like but instead of games, it was like a bunch of manga, like different manga.
Well, like Playboy.
Yeah, it would be like Playboy, but yeah.
Exactly. But it'd be like a bunch of manga series that have like ongoing episodes
to it. Yeah, exactly. So that's what it would be. It would be a compilation.
One of many
in
a book.
In a book. Yeah.
So Gooch, what did you think the tech was behind the electrified wheels on their bikes? Or did Kaneda was the only one that had electrified wheels, or was that just like?
I think it was just like a
visual
effect this is one of the first animated movies that actually used like computer animation and stuff to like highlight special effects in it, and that was one of the things they did. And kind of make it look like the bikes from Tron type thing, that thing.
This movie had a bunch of callbacks to stuff. That was outside of itself. So go ahead, continue though.
But I think that's what that was. I mean, I guess you could tell that his bike was more high tech than the others, so maybe that's why they wanted to kind of like show his bike off. But I don't think it was anything special. I mean, he had wheels like anyone else.
They tricked me.
But Kaneda also says something along the lines of he made some upgrades to his bike to where like
right.
it can only get to a certain speed if he was in control,
Well,
or like he did something to it.
It stays running or on. Once it gets below 5,000 RPMs, I think he said.
Yeah, he said even when you switch gears, you have to keep it above 5,000 RPMs.
Otherwise,
it dies. Yeah,
it dies. Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah, so that's what one of his upgrades.
But he was saying that like people couldn't drive it because it's really dangerous.
It's very dangerous. Yeah, he has like a computer controlled like anti-lock brakes or something on it. It's silly things like that. I mean, I don't know what it was,
but it's actually like realistic stuff that people.
No, yeah,
do
now
nowadays,
it is. I mean,
exactly.
But I mean, 88. There probably was stuff around that, but it was like primitive,
Yeah. So another thing I noticed is, when you're watching the movie and the movie starts and there's like there's a couple scenes that are immediately like, for instance, when the little kid is running away and that guy is trying to protect him and they just blow him away and then he like just falls on his face and blood's everywhere. And it's like immediately you notice that like something is different about this movie than any other movie that you may have seen before this. And there's just something about the way that they show death in this movie that seems really unsettling and makes it really serious really quick.
Yeah, I forgot, dude. So I was going to say, I've seen this movie probably twice before I was 20. And then since we all started hanging out, probably, gosh, a handful of times since then. Obviously, we were all blasted out of our minds whenever we watched it. But watching this, I forgot how much stuff was in this movie. Like, I remember the detention center scene, and I remember parts of the fight at the end. But I forgot how violent and how gory it is.
I loved it. I loved it when I was a kid, or I loved it now. And the best thing about it is that it's like, if you get an anime that's really, really gory, and since I was like with all the computer animation, it's all computer animated and all this stuff, right? And it's super extra gory, kind of like Elfen Lied.
Oh yeah, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, Gooch, because there's a lot.
Oh yeah,
Elfen Lied took from
pretty
this movie.
much is this in a different, just rewritten a little bit different, but it's pretty much the same story. Anyways. The best thing about this one is that it has that like the 80s feel, kind of like how the 80s action films their gore is different from the gore now. It's that kind of good gore,
over the top. Yeah,
it's like situational gore.
It's situational gore. No, I think now it's a bit over the top. To be honest with you,
not like Saw, right?
Yeah,
Saw,
you're right. Or Hostel. Like Hostel's too much. There's no need for any of that stuff. But this is like someone's getting blasted. And he's like on the ground. It's like bullets penetrating him. He's not going flying anywhere. That fool was literally like, he's toppled on the floor and they're still shooting him, and then
they like drag his lifeless body away and there's like blood streaking over it. It's like, it's subtle violence, exactly. but it's extremely effective.
Or like when Kay and her group are going into the sewer trying to get into the underground complex, and that one hovercraft with the minigun shoots that dude with his.
Oh yeah,
just the dude with the Uzi.
Just pumps
he gets
a full
blasted, and then Kay searches for the gun. She pulls up the gun, and the guy's hand's still connected to it.
Oh yeah, his arm's still there.
It's awesome, dude. Come on, that's. Even when I was a younger kid, I never thought this was a weird movie or scary at all. I mean, it was confusing as hell because I don't know what's going on at the end.
No, the second half of the movie, we'll talk about it.
It's super confusing.
I'm damn near 40. I still don't know what's going on in this movie.
I absolutely still love this film. And I think it's one of the first films that actually like they were cussing in it and whatnot. And the problem is, I don't know if the streamlined, because the streamlined dub was the first dub, and those are the guys that dubbed like Robotech and some of the earlier anime dubs. It's a very bad dub. But the Pioneer one has the full cussing. No, this was a different. If you watch it, most likely you watch the Pioneer one, and it's. The Pioneer one,
the Pioneer one is like the best one.
Yeah, because like you get the like Canada was I don't know if you watch Trigun, but Trigun Canada is the voice of Vash Stampede. So I mean he's a good voice. You have Stephen Bloom in there doing some. Stephen Bloom was Spike from Cowboy Bebop.
Okay.
You got some other ones. You got Wendy Lee is Kay. Wendy Lee does the voice of Faye from Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, nice.
So you got some better voice actors in this one. I remember watching the first dub of it and back in the day, and I was like, this is terrible. And that's why I only watched it in Japanese from that point on until I saw this Pioneer dub.
It's funny, you mentioned the violence, and I remember there's a scene in this movie that I'll never forget as long as I live. And I think that there's not been some permutations of this scene that I've seen in other Asian cinema. but this was the first time I'd ever seen anything quite like this. The scene where the clowns come back and they want to get revenge on Tetsuo and Kaneda, and they come upon Kaori, and they like it's like I guess that's rape, where they like rip her shirt off and they punch her in the face, and her face is all like bloodied up, and she's like she's like barely pulling the jacket over her, and I was just like, I think that first of all, that was probably the first time I had seen nudity on animated nudity, I think, other than maybe I had seen I'd seen that,
of the Overfiend.
Oh, granted that. I mean, I think I'd seen some animated nudity on like some old video games that they used to have at like bars of like porn video games and stuff like that. And some of those were like anime style, but before that I don't think I'd ever seen nudity in an anime. And then the brutality of it, where it wasn't even sexual. They were just ripping her shirt off to embarrass her and then punch her in the face.
They just beat her up.
And they just beat her up, and then
her hard,
and her face was all swollen. And I remember the first thing that I thought of when I watched it this time was two things. Number one, the scene in Animatrix where they're like ripping the clothes off that like robot woman, and then they're like beating her to death. Yeah. That was disturbing. It's very similar. And not to mention the guy who did Akira did one of the Animatrix vignettes, not that particular one, but another one. And then the scene in Oldboy, where they strap the girl up and they rip her shirt off and all this stuff like that. And I don't know why this is a recurring theme. Maybe I'm just thinking of only Asian films, and maybe there's some in American films too. But it's a really strange thing. It made me feel really uncomfortable when I first saw it, and it still makes me feel uncomfortable to this day.
Well, you know that scene in RoboCop where those two guys are raping that blonde chick, and then RoboCop comes up and shoots the guy in the nutsack? Supposedly, Vorhaven, whatever the director, he wanted to be way more graphic. They wanted
Vanderhoven.
They wanted her like to rip her like rip the top off and her being only in her panties, and then have him shoot like really pretty much underneath her crotch, right? But they said it was too graphic, and it would have been just like this, and they would have like beat her up and stuff like that before he actually would have showed up. But I mean, that's way too graphic for American audiences. I'm wondering if they edited that part out when they released it, like they showed it in theaters here back in I'm assuming it was 89, 90, maybe they would have watched it here. I had no clue, because I watched it later on.
Yeah. And when I was watching this scene, like I was like, wow, that like could have gone a whole lot worse. Like the dude was holding her back, rips her top off, and like I was surprised because I was like, wow, I forgot that was even in this movie. And then they just clocked her square in the face, and she like just drops immediately.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they were going to continue on, but Canada and the other guy showed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Full jumped off the.
It could have gone a whole lot worse.
That's what you meant. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about some of the stuff that reminds me of other movies. And some of it's obviously incidental because those movies came out after Akira, so Akira would probably influence them. But some of the stuff came out before Akira. And one of the things I find it funny, and I don't know, like the scene where after, like when Tetsuo first starts to feel bad, which I want to say is that scene where he beats the crap out of those guys for like doing that to his old lady. Mm-hmm. And they come around the corner and an agent shows up. And the agent just like tosses them. Those agents look exactly like the Matrix agents.
They do.
Exactly like it.
And you know who they also look like?
They look like Men in Black.
Yeah. You know who they look like? They look like the agents from Interstellar 555. The big robot black dudes. Like, I thought the same thing. Like that fool Kaneda comes up to it and tells him, "What are you gonna do with Tetsu?" That fool just like backhands him. The fool just fly.
I know.
And did you notice he knocked a tooth out?
He did. He knocked a tooth out. I was like, that's hilarious, dude.
That's what I love about anime. There's always the tooth getting knocked out, or like you get punched or shot and blood just spews out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And like even when the kids are leaving, because after they leave the detention center, they go to like that boarding school or whatever, and then like even then, like the PE teacher's like smacking them all in the face.
Yeah. It is.
And then like they're walking out, and like one of the dude's girlfriend's like trying to put his tooth right back in his mouth.
It's preposterous. When he goes to space, like you mentioned, Devo, and it was silent, I couldn't help but thinking he looked just like Superman, even with the red cape.
With the red cape, yeah.
It was almost literally like Superman when I saw that. And then obviously,
do you think he put that cape on to like have that sort of Superman feel?
Probably some version of that.
Yeah,
I think so. He wanted to be a superhero. He thought he was a god.
If a fool ripped like a curtain off and put it around.
Was it a curtain or like a dress?
I don't know what it was. It was
dress.
like it was a long piece of material. That's when like the tank shoots him.
Yeah. I love how he just wraps around his neck and it's like perfectly folded, and perfectly
exactly,
tied up.
Exactly. So, but it's like a ripped, like a ripped rag and stuff.
And his arm that he generated for himself after Canada blew it off, it looked almost identical to Luke Skywalker's arm. And from
you mean Anakin?
No, Luke's.
We never see. Oh no,
you're right. Anakin. Yeah. Excuse me, Anakin.
We see Anakin's first, and then we see Luke's after, but.
Or
yeah,
like
but Luke's did his when Luke's first got the hand, it was metal, and then he got one that looked like a human hand, or it always looked like a human hand.
When Luke gets his hand cut off, you see like there's a little flap that's open, and the droid is like poking at it, but you only see the flesh. You don't actually see his robot hand until The Force Awakens.
So, which is awesome, but there's no way that they didn't model Anakin's arm after this movie because it looks very similar. But maybe Terminator, I don't know. Maybe Terminator 1 or something like that was probably before this.
It was before this. It was before this.
So maybe that's what they're drawing from.
Yeah.
Another thing I noticed is that if you was it Iron Man 2 or Iron Man 3 where the his thing in his chest is like poisoning him?
Yes.
Do you remember that? And so like if you notice like the poison around it, it's got like this sort of like jagged circuitry look to it.
Yeah.
And if you look at but Tetsuo when he first gets that metal arm and it's like going into the chair, like it starts spreading and it has that same kind of circuitry design in it. So I wonder if that was an inspiration.
You know what? And it's true. Like, and this was big back like in 80, 89 in Japan because there was that one movie called Tetsuo the Iron Man. I don't know if you guys ever watched it.
I know what that is.
And they have this whole thing where like this guy is turning into this biomechanical type being that it's like he has like weird like wires and metal parts coming out of him, but with he's like still biological. It's actually a pretty good movie. It's almost exactly like that, but in a movie, like how when he's turning into that blob looking thing. It's really good.
I know that whole blob scene was spoofed in South Park.
Really?
The scene in the stadium?
Yeah. So I don't know if it was the movie or if just an episode, but there's some scene where Cartman goes crazy and he starts like growing in this giant blob, just like Tetsuo did.
The scene that you mentioned, Devo, where the arm sort of starts to, grow into the throne that he's sitting on. When he gets up and walks away and it sort of pulls itself and all out of it, like all the veins sort of pull out of the chair. That is like one of the most iconic bit of footage from this movie. Mm-hmm. Like whenever you see a little clip of Akira, they might show that might be one of the things that they show. I love that. I love the way it looks. I love the visual style of it. It's fantastic. The building that they held Tetsuo in looked extremely Blade Runner-ish to me as well, by the way.
Yeah.
I
don't doubt it. I mean, it has that kind of feel, that grittiness to it anyways,
Yeah. And I don't know if you know this, but the manga was the manga debuted in 1982, which was when Blade Runner came out.
There you go.
So yeah, it could have been influenced by, so I want to talk about the hallucinations, that Tetsuo has. That's some really disturbing stuff in there when he's like breaking apart like he's concrete. I almost thought that some of it was like, and then even when they first start showing it and they show like little flashes of the blob, it almost felt Event Horizon-ish the way that they showed it. Or Event Horizon used that sort of style where they show you like a couple different things really, really quickly, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck was that?
Wow.
And then the stuffed animal vision was pretty disturbing too. Like even the way that they showed it and everything was the way that it sort of combined itself.
Milk.
Yeah, I don't know what all that means, but the metaphor is there. But
well, I mean, it's pretty much what those kids know. I mean, they were using the items that they know to attack Akira. So that's why the
stuffed animal, the
car, and then whatever the other guy was. They're all toys, the things that they know. So the moment they saw something real like blood, they got scared.
Yeah,
you know, it disturbed their psychic presence on there because
I thought there were 40.
But they're still. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're still kids.
They're still. I mean, they've been lived a sheltered life. I mean, they've never seen blood. As far as I know, they haven't seen blood and violence and stuff.
But they know blood enough to where it's gross.
It's gross to them, exactly. So
what did you think that his powers were?
Well, I mean, it looks like it's psychic powers. I think that's what it was. I think his powers were just released too quickly all at once.
Yeah,
that's why he's so powerful.
You mean psychic or psionic?
Both psychic, psionic.
Yeah,
psychic means that you can read minds. Psionic is the one that you can control things with your mind. So both. So being a telepathic powers, psionic powers, psychic powers, all of it, I think, is part of kind of the same thing.
Because he was able to read where Akira was from that little girl. Yeah. And so he was able to go into her mind. But he also, part of his powers is that basically he could, whatever he thought essentially would happen. So like when people were attacking him, he could like use his mind to just turn them into mush. I think there are some limitations to that, to where like he was able to create like a psionic force with his mind, and also obviously he could teleport. Yeah. So he's like, okay, this is where Akira's at. I'm going to leave, and then he teleports himself out of that building, and he's like flying around. And then even when the satellite's attacking him, he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go up into space. He was able to shoot himself up into space, survive out in that environment, and then take down an entire satellite.
Yeah.
Did you did you think that he could he has, like we said, we had these psionic powers. He has all this stuff that he can do. But did you think that, and you said that you thought that there were limits, but I was curious, like when they mentioned that like he could sort of harness it, like what exactly that meant in some ways, because that girl was doing stuff beyond what even Tetsuo had even attempted. Like she was like taking over people's bodies and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, they have a lot.
That's the thing, right? Yeah. It's like how long have they lived with those powers to where I'm sure that they've had the opportunity, and they've also had scientists to work with. They were obviously, they showed them when they were kids being monitored, doing different tests to learn the extent of those powers. But with Tetsuo, he had none of that. He realized his powers through anger, and everything that put him in a situation where he had to defend himself is where he realized the powers that he had. And so when it came time for him to actually use those at his will, he only knew the destructive power, and I think that was the thing that the kids were trying to protect him from, and saying, hey, we can still teach you how to control this and, use it in a better way. But he obviously didn't want to do that because he was tired of being pushed around, and he's now the badass. He's the boss. And even Kaneda kind of jokes at him. He's like, oh, you're the big boss now, huh? And that just pushed him over the edge. Even
the lady, even the little girl or the chick, the female telepath, she had her limitations because she needed a mind that was sensitive to her mind meld or something, because Kei was sensitive to that. She could actually be she has that ability. And at the end they allude to she's actually going there slowly to where she can build her like next generation may be able to control it a bit more, and then so far and so on. And
that's what that was.
That's what they allude to it towards the end. So
do you think that the reason why Tetsuo had this power is because he had that encounter with the kid in the beginning?
Oh, no doubt.
So you think that's what like catalyzed it, like his sensitivity to it.
They even say that in the movie. Yeah.
So nothing would have happened to him. He would have been fine if that incident had never taken place.
I mean, he probably would have gotten killed.
Correct.
From getting hit by the motorcycle.
Okay.
Yeah, because they say everybody's got that ability inside of them, like we already touched on, but it was that instance, and they say something shortly after that incident happens where, because he was touched by one of those, kids with the power, that that's what unlocked his ability.
Yeah.
So then why didn't it unlock for everyone else, like the colonel and stuff, people that were scientists, people that were interacting with them all the time?
Well, the thing is though, is that it was a traumatic experience. Like, so the kid saved Tetsuo. Because remember, well, he didn't save him. Tetsuo was going to run into the kid, and then the kid did that, is just like
to defend himself.
Psionic shield, and I guess it saved Tetsuo as well. So I mean, he should have died there. I mean, he according to his motorcycle blew up.
Yeah.
So I mean, that traumatic experience, probably intertwined with the psionic abilities of the other kid, and it's turned his 90% of his brain on. I don't know.
So like there's this element of the plot where there's like this group of radicals that sort of think that of Lord Akira, he's gonna come back and like what he did to Neo Tokyo was like cleanse the land of all the evil, and now he's gonna come back and do it again because the land is evil again, type of thing, right? And they thought that Tetsuo was Akira, so that made me think that like maybe people knew that Akira had done that, and it wasn't it wasn't some other country. And I also thought that given that when they so they built up Akira and they did all this stuff, and then when you find out that he's like in a bunch of test tubes, essentially,
yeah,
I liked it. I thought it was kind of cool. I had kind of forgot that was what he was when I was watching it. I thought it was going to be a boy, but it wasn't actually a boy. And that he wasn't there. But I was curious how they explained how Akira was still able to communicate with them.
Oh, because the parts were still alive.
Oh,
that's why they were in the test tubes. And even when they were there because they were frozen. And even the colonel says, like, we froze all his parts to, so future generations can study him and learn the power. But when the tubes were taken out of that cryogenic chamber and, even Tetsuo had him up on display, the kids were sitting there, like, kind of like praying to him or something. Yeah. But then when all the powers that Tetsuo had were starting to manifest, then you could see the test tubes kind of like bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. And then they kind of reformed Akira. And then Akira he had again did that white light, but this time instead of to destroy, he did it to save.
Yeah. Imagine there were a bunch of test tubes. All it was test tubes and specimens, and they buried it underneath. Well, they were building the stadium above it, but they literally buried it. Who knows how far under the ground? For just specimens, how much they were
froze it.
So even the people that did that knew that there was these parts of him still had power, So even they feared that. Even it tells them that look at what they did. They feared him so much that they made a mess, And then it's just a bunch of big old ice tubes and stuff like that. Oops. And so even then, even his body parts still had power. So.
That's crazy. I wonder if they hadn't gotten destroyed, if he would have come back.
I don't know,
in some form.
Maybe.
I just think it's crazy. Like this, like the whole thing, the whole story, and especially once he starts, like Devo said, like when he starts expanding and turns into that blob and kills his old lady. It's disturbing, man. Like I remember when I first saw it, I'd never seen anything like that ever.
And like, who's the sick fuck that's thinking of that,
Well, honestly, I think the worst thing that happened was to Akira. I mean, when I remember watching the first time and seeing all this, the Tetsuo turn into a blob and poor Kei getting smashed and whatnot. But really what got me was that, man, this poor kid, they fucked with them. They ran tests. He blew the shit up. And what happened to him? They sliced him up, well.
Yeah, they dissected him.
They didn't slice him up. They said that they said the power consumed him so much that was like what they had in the tubes is all that was left.
Oh, whatever was left was they sliced them up and put them in specimens into tubes. It's not like they were these matches they got put into the tubes. They put them in there, and I was crazy. And that was what was really got me. I'm like, poor Akira, and.
Well, he did kill, well,
it was not his fault. Who knows what they did to him for him to cause that?
I'm just saying.
Imagine they put this poor kid. Who knows? I mean, like towards the end there. I mean, towards the middle when they were like when they showed the three kids and then Akira and they were like putting them on the table. They were scared. They were literally testing them. They like cut off their head and put that the metal skull cap on them. How messed up is that? Akira probably just got tired of it and it went supersonic on him and just blew everything up.
All right, let's get into It's Just So Ridiculous.
Yeah. He's like the whole movie.
I know the whole movie.
Yeah.
So these biker gangs they're just killing each other.
Yeah.
Like, so how the hell can you get a gang when you're killing each other every week?
I
get new recruits.
Yeah, you get new recruits.
You just get new dudes to get killed?
It's like Mad Max. It's literally just like Mad Max. That's what it really is.
Was Kaneda the leader of the, what were they called? The Pill Gang?
I don't know what they were called, but they were kind of this gang. Yeah,
He was
Kaneda's
gang.
He was the leader of them.
The clowns had the big old black dude.
Yeah.
You know what? I have some.
And that was it, right? They only showed those two.
Those two
gangs.
You know what I thought too was in that first scene where where they're fighting each other and one of the clowns' motorcycles gets thrown into the restaurant. And like there was this dude and his lady just eating. They're like, "Look, what's going on there?" Boom! And the motorcycle just smashes into the guy and kills him
right in the back of his head.
Oh, I forgot about that one. I should have laughed on that one.
There's a couple funny scenes when they get they're in the detention center, and he's the one guy gets upset. He's like, "Who you call an old man?" And he's
I'm
like,
25.
I'm 25.
No, that was. Oh yeah.
He's like, I'm not even 25. I'm not even married. I was like that. I was like, dude, that fool looks 40.
Yeah.
He only 25.
And they kind of pull that same joke later too when they do when everybody's in the council. And like there's one dude that's like, "Oh, you're just an old man." He's like, "You take that old man comment back." And like they actually get up and they almost get in a fist fight. Going back to the detention center, it's not really that's so ridiculous, but the scene where because they're interrogating everybody trying to find that political idealist, the anarchist, and then that fool pulls out the grenade and it becomes a dud. And they all just beat his ass.
Yeah, it's just punch him in the face, dude. It's brutal.
But then a couple minutes later, when everybody has left the detention center, the grenade actually blows up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought that was such a nice little touch that like you didn't really have to put in there. It didn't really add anything, but it was just like, okay, that's like fortuitous, like the kids could have gotten blown up. Like that would have been the end of the movie right there. But obviously they survived.
Mine is Kaneda's just like terrible hitting on Kay. Like when he first meets her, God, it's just painful. Like
sexual harassment.
Too hard.
No, it's not that. It's just he's just so bad at it,
Yeah, well, because he's not like touching her. But he's just
like trying to be sly. It's like, oh, and then he's like, "I saved you, you owe me, you bitch," and he yells at her. I'm like, come on, man, really?
That's what women like back in 1988. Dog.
Apparently not. I thought that was. I'm like, this is just ridiculous, stupid.
Did anybody else find it weird that like the kids were like they called everybody a loser? Like, even though there's swearing in the movie, like whenever somebody was like causing them problems, they'd be like, "Ah, you loser! You're such a loser! You dumb loser!"
Well, that's
and
what it
they
might
were
be
also like
translated from.
Yeah, I don't know if my translation
yeah.
had that word. It's strange. Yeah. And that's pretty cool. That's interesting though.
What other one was like I said, like so they were all cussing, and one of the guys, like the guy, the gang, kind of the gang members, the guy that survived, he's like, "What the heck? What the heck?" Left and around. I'm like, why don't you say "what the fuck"?
Yeah.
Or "what the hell"? Why is it "what the heck"? I was like, dude, come on now.
Because even Kaneda would be like, "Oh shit!" Yeah. Like something's like he's trying to like dodge.
I thought it. I mean, I don't want to say it's ridiculous, but like, when Tetsuo first comes out of his room after they sort of antagonize him and he's like angry, I thought, okay, when I watched it, I'm like, he's just gonna like punch a guy or you know what I mean? He's gonna like grab him and throw him against. No, he like literally just rips people apart. They just start exploding. Yeah. He's just massacring people. I was like, this is anime. Like this is okay. This is different. You know what I mean?
Did you feel that was kind of unwarranted though? Because it's like they noticed that the locks were off his room, so the dude came with guards, and he's like, "Hey, you're not supposed to be out of your room." And he's not like grabbing Tetsuo, but he's like holding onto him. He's like, "We're gonna go find you a new room," blah, blah, blah. And like the guards are like looking in there, and all of a sudden, splat! They all turn to mush.
I mean, I was curious. Like, I agree with you in a little bit of a way because I was like, okay, so why is he so angry? Because they made him cry?
It's teen angst. Well, we don't know about it anymore.
Well, because they don't
know
touch
that
on
anymore.
that when Kaneda is consumed by Tetsuo, and Tetsuo Kaneda is going through Tetsuo's memories, and one of the memories is when Tetsuo first goes to Kaneda's school, and I guess Kaneda, Tetsuo's washing off like bruises and he's all beat up and stuff. And then Kaneda comes by and he gives him this toy. And he's like, oh yeah, these guys, beat me up too. They just want to see you cry. And I think they touch on that in the past or in another flashback too, where he's a little bit older. And, they say like, Tetsuo never wants anybody to see him cry. And so, because he cried, then that was like the catalyst.
The other thing,
go ahead.
No. I was taking another point. That's why I was.
No, go for it.
So this is another so ridiculous thing. Also, like, I don't know if it's ridiculous, but I thought it was cool. Like, if at the beginning of the movie, you saw Canada at the jukebox, and it had like Led Zeppelin, it had
the Doors,
and a Cream in it, and like all the actual real brands they have in the game. In the movie. I thought, like,
I
always thought actually it add an extra flair, but it actually is pretty ridiculous to put them in there.
Like Dunlop,
Canon,
Shoei,
bunch of stuff that's not what it used to be.
I guess so.
Okay, there's a scene that made me laugh because, when Canada they go into the baby room or whatever the heck they call it, the nursery. In my version, they called it the baby room. I don't know if they called it that in your guys's. And so they're trying to calm Tetsuo down. He's like destroying the place and ripping down walls and breaking things and everything, right? And then finally, like you said, Devo, he teleports himself away or something like that. And the colonel is there, and he's like. And like he's like, oh, we have to go. Why did we? Where does he know how to go? And she's like, and the girl is like, ashamed because he read her mind, right? And he's like, all right, well, we got to get to the stadium. He's like, you there? Look alive! Pick up those bodies. Get this place in order. I'm like, get what in order? He literally ripped the place to fucking pieces. Yeah. And there's like cement rubble everywhere. Get what in order? The place is destroyed. It was preposterous. And then the last thing before we get to the Kim Coppola Award, that scene where the senator, like he sold him out and he sold him out. The chipmunk looking senator guy.
Yeah.
I didn't get that whole storyline. I didn't understand why it even needed to be in there.
Dude, all the political aspects of this movie, I had no idea what was like, why that dude was like, when they were found, they were like burning all their documents. The dude was trying to stuff a bunch of like cash and like bail bonds in that suitcase. I didn't even know he had a heart condition, and apparently that like is what killed him. There was so much that I didn't understand.
Well, I mean, it's part of it being like more adult anime. It shows that there was.
I'm an adult.
Right. You don't understand anything. You still don't understand anything. No, it's just to show that there was the government itself. It was in turmoil, and there was one person in the high up government that was helping the people, or the people trying to fight against the military aspect of that government, because it looks like they were all against that. And when the colonel took over, which is weird, is why is a colonel doing this? Why isn't it a general? That's what I always comment is, why is it colonel isn't that high up there? But I guess
maybe
he was
it's a weird translation thing.
Maybe
the rank is different in Japanese military.
When I always thought the cool was like when the senators send their henchmen to apprehend the colonel, and the colonel's like, shoot him. The fool just pulls out his gun, he just blasts that fool in the face, and then that guy gets blasted, and it's like, stop.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about. No, it's great talk. I love it. I love that scene.
Blasts him, and then another guy gets blasted, and the colonel's like, stop. This is all the killing. This is what they want. Type thing, and it's like martial law. That was great
because he's like, I don't have time for this. Shoot him.
Yeah, he's like, I don't have time for this. Shoot him.
Yeah. I think he says something like he says I'm not gonna turn over the city of Neo Tokyo to these damn fools, to these fools, and he's like, shoot them.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, wait, and he just shoots them.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like a coup d'etat. Yeah. It's like a military coup at that point, right? I think they even mention that.
They
in
do.
the movie. They say it's like there's a military coup or something like that. Like
on the news, right?
In the news when they're like, it's unclear if this young boy is on the side of the people that are going against the military coup or not.
The chopper that's flying around trying to. They're like telling him to don't film type of thing. Yeah.
All right, so Kim Coppola Award. I don't know about acting because there's been so many iterations of this, but let's just talk about.
There are so many great candidates.
You know what?
Let's talk about the worst character, maybe.
I'm going to give you mine because
Okay,
I don't think you guys watched the other dub. I doubt it because it's very hard to find now. I'm going to give it the whole dub. That whole dub is terrible.
That dub gets your Kim Coppola
that whole
Award?
dub just is garbage. It's garbage. Don't watch a streamlined one. It's a garbage dub. So all the actors are so terrible in that one. And it's weird because they did all this Robotech stuff and all the other stuff, but it's that version of the movie does not give it any credit to the movie because it's just so bad. Even like the sound is weird. It's just like the movie, that version of the movie is really, really bad. So apart from that, go ahead. What's the worst character for you? I'll give you mine after.
I don't like, honestly. I know he's supposed to be the hero, but I just couldn't stand Kaneda. You know, from him being like this sort of like pompous prick at the beginning, like he wasn't somebody that I thought his friends really liked. He had some weird affinity for Tetsuo. You know, I know they were friends when they were kids, but like when they were adults, when we knew him in 2019, he was just this giant dick to Tetsuo. And then even all the stuff with him and Kay, like I also felt that he was the hapless hero. Like he kind of like stumbled into victory, and you know, he didn't really do anything to save the day. Like he's not the hero of the movie.
No.
Even though like he's the poster boy, and you know he's the one that everybody like clings onto. But it's really you know, those little blue kids that save the day.
Yep.
Maybe it might have been Tetsuo's memory of Kaneda, but and you know, again, the dub that I had, I don't remember which one I have.
It's the same.
It
It's the same one you watch. Believe me.
The acting was with Kaneda was just like horrible. Like all the other like the friends from the Pill Gang were all like out of control. Like they were just like way off. But like that's what you get in like an anime dub. You know,
what?
But it was,
Devo, what, Devo and Gooch, why is it that like anime dubs have traditionally been abysmal, yet when they make American animated films, we never think about that. The acting is actually usually good.
Well, I mean,
why?
You watch it in Japanese and the acting is good because they don't get actual like the problem is that I mean you're spending millions upon millions of dollars to get voice actors, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong, some of these voice actors are actually pretty good, but they just did a poor job. And I agree with you. I mean, this is not one of the best dubs that I've heard, mind you. I mean, especially since like Pioneer put some quality stuff out there. Like at the same time, Cowboy Bebop was out at around this, you know, a little bit earlier, and they are the ones that did that dub. So you take the quality of that anime and the quality of this. It's, you know, it's pretty bad, but you take the quality of Trigun and this, and you can hear where the similarities are. It's not the best dub, not the worst dub. I would watch it in Japanese, Devo, and you could get a different feel on Kaneda. But Kaneda is that kind of person, though. He's a leader of a gang. He's a ruffian. He's supposed to be like that. You're not supposed to like him. He's not the likable character. Tetsuo is supposed to be the likable character, you know, the one that you feel sorry for. So, and Kaneda is kind of there as like, you know, his guy that looked out for him. That, you know, in Japanese culture, you have your senpai, you know, the guy that's, you know, the guy you look up to that, you know, it looks out for you, but kind of, you know, roughhouses with you. He's that kind of character, you know, and that's a very tropic thing again in Japanese anime and manga, and I guess in life, I don't know, but
so. Go ahead.
Senpai Devo.
Exactly. It's so I think Kaneda is fine, especially since like I've watched the Japanese one. He's fine in that one. I don't like their friend, like the one dude that survived.
Oh, at the very end.
Yeah. He's like you don't expect someone like that to be in a motorcycle gang. To be honest with you, it's like you expect him to be like in a terrible synth pop band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's like I attributed him to the rabbit character from Fast and the Furious. You know, the little tiny nerdy guy.
I guess.
Like, you know, there's always some like weird, nerdy, stupid character in a gang.
He just happened to survive. Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
I think the other guy would have been better to survive. The big tough guy. But either way.
Yeah. But yeah, well, he tried to stand up to Tetsuo. He tried to be a badass, and guess what?
Yeah, you got his
Tetsuo popped them pills and then popped that skull.
You know, it's funny. Well, I'll talk about this a little bit later. We're hovering right around that hour mark for the listeners, but we'll keep going because we got more to talk about. So the Kim Coppola Award, I guess. Well, my worst. I would have nominated the Senator just because I didn't get that whole storyline and I thought it was terrible. But I think Gooch's. Devo, if you agree, I think Gooch's nominee is who we should award give the award to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The original dub.
Yeah.
You win the Kim Coppola Terrible Acting Award. Okay, so let's talk about some deviantly repeatable quotes. I have a couple.
I didn't really have many, to be honest with you.
I do have some.
I think we already said some.
Devo, did you have any?
I mean, for me, like whenever I think of Akira, I always just go, Kaneda, Tetsuo, because at the very end, I feel like half the dialogue is just Kaneda, Tetsuo,
Tetsuga. Okay, so I had a couple. Okay, so my funniest, one of the ones I love was the one that Gooch mentioned before, where he's like, just shoot him, and they do, right? One of the ones. The other one was the one that you mentioned, Devo, where the guy's like, "Long live the freedom revolution," and then the grenade doesn't go off, and they literally just run over it, slug him in the face, and beat him to almost to death. Yeah, basically. I love it. That was funny. And okay, so there's two more that I have that we didn't mention so far. So after Tetsuo destroys the bar. And that one guy that you said was annoying, and the other guy that gets killed by Tetsuo walk into the bar, and they're having a conversation with them. In my version, I guess I watched the English dub. It was in my just recently. I've seen like the Japanese version before. I prefer that one. But he goes, "What are you doing?" He's like, "What are you doing in here? Why do you look like that?" He's like, "You look like a damn crackhead."
Yeah. That's the new dub.
Yeah. That was in my dub.
Yeah. Okay, I thought it was like that's hilarious to me. Hilarious to me.
There's another scene where when Tetsuo is walking through the city after he's wearing his cape and he's kind of like blowing things up, but then like all of the Akira followers think that Tetsuo is Akira. And there's that one old dude that does all the praying, and like Akira, like he blows up a bridge, or not Akira, but Tetsuo blows up a bridge or something like that.
He's falling
and like
down.
Everybody's falling, and that old dude's like, "Help me, help me!" And then like somebody grabs him, and they're walking up, and then a flaming car just comes down and crushes him. It's so great.
I love it. So but I think my favorite one of all of them is when, like you said, Devo, he's like slapping them when they're at the detention center, and you just it's a perfect scene because you see the guy who's hitting them, you see him from behind, and you see every kid's face before he hits them, and then their face after he hits them, and he's just standing in front of one of them, and he's like discipline, discipline. Yeah. And he's like literally destroying their faces.
Yeah, he's not slapping him. He was punching him in the face.
He's like punching him in the face, and then afterwards he's like dismissed.
Yeah.
And it was just greatness. I love that scene. Okay, so now let's talk about the Deviant remake. So this movie has been in live action development hell since 2002 when Warner Brothers bought the rights to it.
Right.
I think that this could be like now with what we have, it could be a fucking crazy ass live action film, like something that along the likes of that's never been seen before in a live action film. I honestly believe. But the movie has had 5 writers and upwards of 10 directors attached to it at different times.
That's bad.
I think that this movie, so I read that this movie removes about half of the manga. So about the second half of the manga just simply isn't in the movie. They end it at a point where like where the movie ends was at a point that's roughly halfway through the manga. But I know that some of the idea being that if they were to make this a movie, they would make it closer to the manga, and it would be like a 2-movie thing where the first movie is somewhat similar to what we saw in this movie, and then the second part would be the second part of the manga. And I was thinking, but it's also suffered from a lot of accusations and fear about whitewashing, about race bending the characters. One of the iterations had it set in Manhattan, a version of Manhattan that was owned by Japan called New Tokyo. So you could have this like amalgamation of Japanese and white characters, so to speak. But I was thinking to myself personally, if they made this into a live action movie, the Colonel should be played by Ken Watanabe. I don't know what else you guys think about who you would think could do this or what you think about a live action film. But yeah, I was curious.
I mean, that could be that would be perfect casting. I know for a while, wasn't Keanu attached to an Akira remake?
I think he could be Ryu or something like that.
Well, I mean, he was attached to the.
He would have been Kaneda or Tetsuo, right?
Yeah, he's too old now, of course.
Now,
but unless they're going to rewrite it, but I think they were trying to make the kids even younger.
Really?
Yeah, a little bit even younger than high schoolers. And so, interestingly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the manga. So the manga is different, significantly different than the movie. In the manga, Tetsuo ends up getting shunned by Kaneda and becomes the leader of the clown gang after they pitied him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so that Kaori stuff is like it's not mentioned from what I read. He wasn't even dating her. She's just an acquaintance that he met in the second half of the anime, where it's like a girl that he knew as an acquaintance. And when he was like really powerful, he like killed her inadvertently, brought her back to life, but she was blind. And then he let her die again.
Oh, damn.
So that's what I read about the character. So they just change that character up. And apparently in the manga, Akira is actually a normal looking boy. They go and they find him and he's a boy, and he becomes a main character in the anime. And the anime is more about Tetsuo versus Akira rather than Tetsuo versus Kaneda.
Right.
Huh.
So, and Devo, you mentioned earlier about how Tetsuo's body expands.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was reading about, let me bring this up really quickly here because I want to say it in a way that I had read it. I'm bringing it
in traditional Japanese.
And no. Okay, so it says here, Tetsuo's, this is from Wikipedia, Tetsuo's power begins to contort his physical body, causing it to absorb surrounding objects. He later learns that his abuse of his powers have caused them to expand beyond the confines of his body, giving him the ability to transmute inert matter into flesh and integrate it into his physical form.
Okay.
So he's basically just taking matter from the
and
world,
just creating
and,
flesh out of it.
Yeah, making an organic flesh. Yeah,
but that's also different from what happens in the movie.
It is.
In the movie, when that happens, it's turning into a baby form.
And then they do say that though in the manga. They do say that when he becomes as he does that, he becomes huge and becomes in a fetus form.
Like, so why though?
Rebirth or something like that, becoming a new
even
creature.
In the scientist, the main scientist dude in charge of the whole program, like he's got that spectrum that he's
the pattern.
Like and I don't even know what that pattern does or did or whatever.
I think it was a kinetic energy pattern, something like that, an energy pattern.
And then as his flesh started growing, that pattern turned to a fetus.
It's disturbing. And okay, so two last things. A couple last things. The manga didn't end until 1990, which was 2 years after the movie was released.
Wow.
So he was
started in 82?
Yeah, and it ended in 1990. So he was still writing the story, and it didn't end until 1990. And the guy who wrote it, it debuted in 82. The guy who wrote it said that he would love to have a live action film, but he would like it to diverge significantly from both the movie and the anime.
You mean the movie and the manga?
Excuse me, yeah, the anime and the manga. And also in the manga, they have this idea of like the birth of the universe. Like remember the scientist is like, this is the Big Bang. What happened at the Big Bang? Like none of that's in the manga. None of that stuff. It's not like that. Yeah, but I mean they go into space and stuff like that, and they fight in space. Seriously.
No, I believe you. No, I absolutely believe you, dude. It's a Japanese anime, a manga. what we expect.
I kind of want to read that manga now.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
You know,
The manga sounds a little more interesting to me than the movie.
Yeah, the live action movie, you know, it like one of the other. Remember, I told you, I guess has like you know, whitewashing is one of the concerns. Another concern is like if you make a movie like that, and like I don't know if it's been removed, because in that movie they're like calling back to this idea of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but that's like 40 years before, like 45 years before I mean 45 years after the event. But a lot of people are saying if you make a movie like this, it's going to remind people of September 11th. Like the original movie reminds people of the World War II bombings. And they even thought about making it closer to a September 11th type event. But, you know, obviously there's some trouble with that because I don't know if America's ready for that type of thing. And it's interesting because that I mentioned Ken Watanabe earlier, because one of the directors that was attached to a version of this movie was Christopher Nolan, which I think would be a perfect director for something like this, especially if you wanted to make it different in some way, you know?
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Jordan Peele turned it down after the success of Get Out. And as of 2017, the guy who directed Thor Ragnarok is attached to direct it.
The Indian dude,
I love
right?
Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
Waititi.
Yeah. And also last thing before we get to our opinion on it, there was a Famicom adventure game back in 1988 of Akira. I don't know if you guys know this.
Really?
Yeah. We should go look it up.
Was it a Famicom game? I know it was one of the hard.
It
It
was.
was one of the hardest games. It didn't make any sense. I've actually played it. It's a super buggy game, and it's a terrible game.
I think it would be interesting to have a game where you sort of get those powers.
No, it's not even.
But you could. But
it's not even.
No, I'm saying like a modern.
Oh,
no, I'm saying like a modern
game,
game where you get those powers, but you sort of are able to harness them.
Yeah, dude. But that game, you're like, it's like the first level is you riding your motorcycle right across the highway, and any little thing blows you up. It like you hit you hit this pixel that's like floating in on the screen. Boom, you blew up.
It's a motorcycle game.
Well, it's so there's
it's
like 4 levels.
Like I'm looking at screenshots. So like there's that's a SNES Mega Drive version that was canceled.
Yeah, there's a canceled version of it.
But like it mostly looks like it's like an action adventure game, or mostly an adventure game where it's like, you know, look to the right, look to the left, that sort of thing. Yeah.
The one I played, it was like you're on a motorcycle, and then if you manage to get past that level, there's 4 levels. If you manage to get past that level, there's one that's like a jumping game. What is it called? A platformer.
Platformer.
And then there's another bike. There's another bike
like
level.
original Grand Theft Auto type game.
No, not even. It's a platformer. It's like, you know, you're jumping up. It's like the
Mario
the
Brothers type of thing.
Yeah. And then there's another motorcycle level, and then the last level is like you're running around on the hover bike in a game. It was like, dude, this is the worst game ever. It's so buggy. It's so hard to get past the first level.
All right, fellas, let's give our final thoughts on Akira.
I've always loved Akira. I remember it was one of the first anime, like Japanese anime, that I actually watched. Although I did watch like Robotech and all those, but I remember a friend gave me a Japanese version of this thing when like in 89, 90, right? And I watched it with my brother, and I was blown away. Like I had never ever seen anything like this ever. You know, the cartoon, you know, this blows you away. You're like, I was in 89, I was 10. No, I was 8. So I was 9. So it was 90. And
you were some age.
I was young. I was definitely young. And I loved it. And to this day, I mean, I don't like the dub, mind you. but it's easier to watch, mind you, because a lot of it you lose a lot of the information if you're reading it, but it's a great film. I think if you are introducing someone to anime, like serious anime, this is a good introduction because it's violent, but it's not too violent. It's sci-fi, so you get that feel for it. It's kind of weird, so you get that kind of weird for it too. But it's not too weird. It's not too violent, and I think the art style is still good for being what, 40 years old? No, it's not that old. It's
No,
30
it holds
years
up.
Old. It holds up at 30 years old.
It holds up.
Oh yeah.
Especially the blowing up blob stuff. There's still very little things that are even look remotely close to that.
So I give this one 9.
For me, I remember holding this movie in such high regard because it was one of the first animes that really blew up here on the west coast of the world. But watching it again as I'm older, it's like I appreciate the art. I appreciate a lot of things that were done visually that make this movie just stand out. But the story itself, and again, I don't know if it's the dub. I kind of want to go back and not only read the manga but watch the Japanese version with subtitles. But it's just like there's a lot of stuff that I felt that kind of just was there and things were already happening, and then like a lot of the political stuff, like I have no idea what the implications were for everybody that were involved with this program. I don't know why the program was there to begin with. I just know that there was a biker gang and they got involved, and all of a sudden you've got this person who is threatening the safety of the world. But with all that said, and even with the horrible dub, it still it does so many amazing things in a movie, and especially in anime, like even some modern anime that I've seen, this still blows it out of the water. It touches on things like we talked about how those the lights on the motorcycle remind us of the light cycles from Tron. Just the way the cityscapes look, the way that a lot of the characters move and interact, and it's so beautifully done. In '88, spending $9 million to animate a movie like this, you tell it really paid off. It's an absolutely gorgeous movie, and I think in terms of that aspect, it's really great. But for me, like I still have no fucking clue what this movie's about.
Dude.
So if someone's like, hey, what's Akira all about? I'm like, some guy turns into a giant blob and everybody fucking dies.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to say. So, with that said, I would give it a solid 7.
So, I mean, you said a lot of the things that better than you said took the words out of my mouth in a lot of that the compliments of the film. For me, it's truly a vestige of my youth. I remember this is like one of the first things that got me into anime, that made me realize that I could get the same level of intrigue and seriousness and wonder and awe that I would get from any sci-fi movie that I would watch, that live action American film. And there's something about it that makes it feel different than even many animes that you might see now. And a lot of them are influenced heavily by this movie. And I think that like Gooch said, if you are trying to get into anime and you're looking for something to sort of, dip your toe into the water and you're looking for something serious, I think that this is a great place to start, because you'll see a lot of the tropes of anime that got used subsequently. You'll see that a lot of them are contained within this film. And I also think that a lot of the things that this film embodies in terms of like societally, like socially, where it sits, the legacy of it in the genre, and how visible some of the iconic images from this film are. I definitely think that would be something that you should look into. But however, I want to let people know that the movie isn't for the faint of heart. There's some really disturbing stuff in there. There's some stuff that's mind-boggling, and like this isn't for kids.
Definitely,
it's not for kids. This is definitely not for kids.
We're talking to adults here. We're talking to adults. Yeah. Please don't get. It's your.
Yeah, but don't watch it with your kids. Either,
don't watch it with.
It's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean,
it's nightmarish.
You're a teenager, probably, but not your kid. This is. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I'm assuming our people that are listening here are at least 20 plus. Okay, hopefully. Yeah.
But I there's the thing, like Devo said, there's some watching it now as an adult. There is some aspects to the plot that just seem like they could have been omitted, and the movie could have been a little tighter, maybe an hour and a half long. May have been even a little bit more effective, because you didn't have all this political stuff. You don't think you really even need it, but it seems to be vestiges from the original manga. But I think that given if you can get past that stuff, I still think it's extremely good. It's worthwhile. And I probably give it like a 8.5 or a 9 myself. And I think it's great.
I agree.
So there you have it. Akira. Go out, watch it. Hit up Battle Angel, Alita Battle Angel, whatever the heck it is. I can't wait to see that movie. My boy Mahershala.
Mahersh.
And I know, Gooch, we got to get out and see that one.
We do. Next week.
Yes, sir. Until then, deviants, stay deviant.
See ya.
Bye.